Welcome to Mythos AI, your source for Cliff's Notes on complex subjects. Join Anna and Phil for yet another engaging conversation.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are going to be exploring the answer to Quizzypedia Season 208. Question 1.
Sounds good.
The category is Companies and Corporations.
Okay.
The question is, launched in 2008, this Swedish music streaming service revolutionized how people listen to music by offering instant access to millions of songs and playlists. It has since become a global leader in music streaming, introducing features like personalized playlists, podcast hosting, and integration with various social media platforms. What is the name of this platform? Co-founded by Daniel Ek and Martin Lorentzen.
Sounds familiar.
And the answer is Spotify.
Of course.
Spotify has definitely changed how we all listen to music. But before we get into all that, let's talk about what things were like before Spotify. Back in the early 2000s, everybody was getting their music illegally.
Right. Sites like Napster, Kazaa, and LimeWire made it so easy to just download music without paying.
Yeah, it was a huge problem for the music industry.
Definitely. The Recording Industry Association of America said that music sales in the U.S. dropped from almost $15 billion in 1999 to a little over $6 billion in 2009.
Wow, that's a big difference. But that's actually where Spotify's founders saw an opportunity. Daniel Ek and Martin Lorentzen realized that people wanted a way to listen to music legally but also conveniently.
Exactly. And so in 2008, Spotify launched its desktop application in Europe.
Okay.
Their idea was pretty revolutionary. First, they introduced the idea of streaming music. This was a totally new thing. Instead of buying individual songs or albums, you could now pay a monthly fee to access this huge library of music.
Cool, I see.
And they also had this freemium model where you could listen for free if you were okay with ads. This was a big reason why so many people started using Spotify.
Smart. But I bet it wasn't easy getting the record labels on board.
Oh, absolutely not. Ick and Lorentzen had to spend years negotiating with them. They had to convince these big labels that streaming could actually make them money. But in the end, they were successful. Spotify launched with a huge library of music.
So what features made Spotify so popular?
Well, one of the biggest ones is personalized playlists. In 2015, they introduced Discover Weekly.
Ah, yes.
This feature uses algorithms to analyze what you listen to and then recommends new music that you might like. It's like having a personal DJ. Later on, they added Release Radar and daily mixes, which made the listening experience even more personalized.
Cool. What else?
Spotify also used social features really well. They had collaborative playlists where people could share music with their friends. And then, of course, there's Spotify Wrapped.
Yeah, everyone loves that.
It's become this huge thing where people share their listening habits on social media.
Definitely. So when did Spotify get into podcasts?
That was another smart move. They bought companies like Gimlet Media, Parcast, and Anchor. This helped them add a lot of different content beyond music.
Right.
And then their deal with Joe Rogan was really important. It made them one of the biggest platforms for podcasts.
I can see why.
But this also brought up some issues with content moderation, which we'll talk about later.
Okay. Let's talk more about technology. They've definitely pushed the boundaries over the years.
For sure. They were one of the first to implement high-fidelity streaming, which means CD-quality audio. And then they made it possible to control your music with voice assistants like Alexa and Siri.
So listening to music is so much easier now.
Exactly. Oh, and I almost forgot about their commitment to artists. Spotify for Artists gives musicians all sorts of tools to help them understand their audience and promote their work. They even let some independent artists upload their music directly and partnered with distribution services to make it easier for artists to get their music on Spotify.
That's really great. So Spotify started as this small European company and has become a global platform for all kinds of audio. It's pretty amazing how they saw a problem in the music industry and found a way to solve it that worked for everyone. Well, kind of for everyone.
Definitely. But, it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were a lot of challenges along the way. From those licensing agreements to debates about how much artists get paid, Spotify has had to deal with a lot of complicated issues to get where it is today. Okay, so let's look at some of the stuff Spotify has been doing recently. In October 2024, they started beta testing music videos.
Music videos?
Yeah, music videos. They're trying them out in 97 markets. Seems like they really want to do more than just audio.
Makes sense. I mean, everyone watches music videos on YouTube, right? It could be a way for Spotify to keep people on their platform longer.
Exactly. Plus, it gives artists another way to reach their fans. And speaking of new things, they've also started using Google's Axion chip.
Axion chip. That sounds pretty techy. Why is that a big deal?
Well, the Axion chip is designed to be really energy efficient.
Oh, okay.
This is good for a couple of reasons. First, it fits in with Spotify's whole thing about sustainability. And second, it means Spotify can stream music without using as much power.
So it's good for the planet, and it could mean our phones don't die as quickly. Win-win.
Exactly. And then there's their partnership with Emirates Airlines.
Emirates?
Yep. They're putting Spotify on Emirates in-flight entertainment systems.
Interesting. So now you can listen to Spotify on a plane.
Yep. Spotify wants to be everywhere. People listen to stuff at home, in the car, on a plane, you name it. It's all about being convenient.
Makes sense. Now let's talk about the bigger picture. Spotify has really changed how the music industry makes money.
Oh, absolutely. It's all about streaming now, not selling physical albums.
Yeah. Do you think that's good or bad?
It's complicated. On the one hand, Spotify has given people access to tons of music for a pretty low price. But on the other hand, some artists say they aren't getting paid enough for their music.
Right. That makes sense.
It's a tough balance, you know? Spotify needs to make money, but the artists need to be paid fairly.
So how does Spotify know what music to recommend?
It's all about data. Spotify collects tons of data on what people listen to, and they use that to make recommendations. Record labels and artists are using that data, too, to figure out things like when to release new music and where to go on tour.
It's amazing how much data is involved.
Yeah.
But going back to the artists, a lot of them have been pretty vocal about the royalty rates they get from Spotify.
Yeah, it's a big issue. A lot of artists feel like they aren't getting their fair share.
So what can Spotify do about it?
Honestly, I don't know. It's a really tough problem. And it's not just Spotify. All the streaming services are facing this. They have to find a way to make money, but they also need to make sure the artists are happy.
What about competition? Doesn't Spotify have rivals?
Oh, yeah, for sure. There's Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, and a bunch of smaller ones, too. It's a tough market.
So how does Spotify stay on top?
They have to keep innovating, coming up with new features, and making sure people have a good experience. And then there's that content moderation thing we talked about earlier, especially with podcasts.
Yeah.
That's a whole other challenge. Figuring out what's okay to have on the platform and what's not is not easy. You don't want to censor people, but you also don't want to be spreading harmful content. It's tricky.
Plus, they have to deal with different laws and licensing agreements all over the world.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle.
So Spotify has to be adaptable to survive.
Absolutely. This is the digital age. Things change fast.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into Spotify,
Yeah.
what are some of the key things we've learned?
I think the biggest takeaway is that Spotify is a prime example of how companies can succeed in the digital world. They saw a problem and they fixed it in a way that really shook things up.
And it didn't just stop there. They kept innovating. All those personalized playlists and the social features, and then podcasts, too.
Right, exactly. And remember that freemium model. That was brilliant. It really helped them grow quickly.
Yeah, smart move.
Yeah.
But they've also had their fair share of challenges, right? Like getting all those licensing agreements and dealing with the whole artist compensation debate.
Definitely. And then figuring out how to moderate content, especially with podcasts, those are all really tough problems.
It shows you how complicated the digital world can be.
Yeah, no kidding. Things are always changing. You got to be able to adapt.
So, what do you think the future holds for Spotify? Think they can stay on top?
Hard to say. It's a really competitive market, but they've shown that they can innovate and evolve.
If they can keep doing that, they've got a good chance.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, think about it. They started out as this little company in Europe, and now they're one of the biggest names in audio entertainment.
It's a pretty amazing story.
It really is. It makes you wonder what the next chapter will be, right? What's the next big thing in music? Will Spotify be a part of it?
Great questions. Lots to think about. That's it for today's deep dive. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Mythos AI. Stay tuned for more concise insights. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe for future episodes.